And welcome back, everyone. And joining me now is the doyen of all things Gordon Rugby, Josh Mitchell. Josh has got an interesting role, which I'll let him tell us all about. Josh, you're welcome to Halftime Offload.
Thanks, BG. Thanks for having me here. Very lucky to be full-time with Gordon at the moment, and it's a hybrid role between the juniors and the senior club, with all 8 junior clubs, I guess, supporting the role at a junior basis, and then the senior women's and men's side of the club support the senior role. So, we've had the role for 3 years now. It's been pretty exciting to be a part of a game-changing role, is what we've sort of put it as, with our recruitment in our juniors to the senior club, but also our presence and, I guess, the strength we're sort of showing in our community in our junior programs as well.
So let's just take it back to brass tacks, because I'm sure many of our viewers won't really understand what your role is and how it works. So before you got to the role, you've had a lot of history with rugby, obviously a junior player, you've been a DO, so you've got a lot of experience bringing it into the role. So I suppose that makes you a very adaptable person to what you're trying to do. So the junior clubs, you've got all the junior clubs there. What do you're like a Gordon DO for want of another term. Is that how it looks like?
So I was really lucky to work here for a few years, in 2017 to 2021, I think it was, 2021, as a DO with the team here, the community team. And from there I learned a lot of, I guess, the powers of networking in the rugby community and the way it will, I guess, help support what we're trying to do and how important that is. And then from there, went overseas to run an academy, a rugby academy in Dubai, and worked with the national team in a coaching setup, in the high performance setup. So was really lucky that in a short time I was able to, I guess, find what makes a community role work, but also the importance of having a high performance mentality in certain aspects of the role. So came back with Andrew Hutton from Gordon and Brad Harrison were together, and they created the role, and were really supportive of the next steps in that space. And I guess the role's been designed to look after the Gordon backyard. I think half the shoot shield is from Gordon juniors, so losing all those players, I think we wanted to change something, and having a really strong junior girls rugby space and junior boys space, we wanted to really promote a role that would then keep our players in our senior club. So it was really important that when I got back, I had to learn how to network with our junior clubs and see what they wanted to achieve as well from their level, and then that would ideally move into the big picture.
So focusing on the juniors part of it for the moment, because we are a junior show. So you've got 8 clubs within the Gordon village that you look after, and do you come along to trainings and help upskill their coaches, that sort of stuff? Do you help them engage with some of the schools? What's the ins and outs of what you do for the clubs?
Yeah, so what we do is the 8 clubs essentially are given a menu of what we can offer in the role, and the main parts of the menu are school engagement. So we get into rugby style programs, and Tartan Tag is the program we run.
Yep.
In our junior schools, but also then help with club sessions, coaching, coach education in the junior space, and then overall support off the field for the players if they are looking at university or TAFE courses if they're not like in school. The pathways part of the role isn't just for rugby, it's about off the field as well. So having the 8 junior clubs support the role and have their own little agendas they want to tick off to make their club better, it does provide a variety of different activities during the week, but essentially, all the clubs, because they contribute, get an equal amount of time throughout the year.
I was going to mention that you've got 8 clubs all wanting a piece of you. Obviously, your time management and allocating that to each of the village clubs is one of the more challenging parts of your role.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I mean, everyone that's involved in rugby sacrifices a lot, which is why the people in rugby are always, working towards the bigger picture, and that's the best thing about it. But yeah, I think at times having the 8 junior clubs plus the Gordon junior side of the role with the rep program and the development stuff and the Highlander Academy we run, there are a few late nights, definitely a lot of Sunday work and Friday night stuff as well. But I guess if, the job for me is something I really love and am really passionate about, and I probably couldn't see myself doing a 9-to-5 desk job. So I never really have an issue with the time commitment that it is. But at times it can be a bit tricky to juggle it all. But we've got a really good team that we've created in our junior space that essentially the succession plan is there for it to keep kicking on, and that being the case, we've got a lot of really good people involved in our area that are helping support the cause.
And tell me, obviously this show is dedicated to the state champs. How much impact does your role have within the Gordon State Champs program?
Yes, it's a pretty big one. So I sort of organise all the trials at the start of the rep program. So all the trials for the girls and boys from under 10s to 18s, and staff all the teams as well. So we're really lucky this year to have a lot of the senior rugby staff involved in our juniors to try and connect the gap between the senior and junior club, which is always a goal of ours to strengthen. And then obviously I oversee all the teams, all the selections and all the boys and girls that are playing over the weekend, and essentially I'm there to ensure that they are developing and progressing the way they need to be. And then this year I was lucky enough to be a part of the 16s boys and girls state champs weekend at Eric Tweedale, so where I was coaching the 16 boys.
Okay.
We didn't quite get to where we wanted to get to, but that's the beauty of, I guess, young footy, is that, on your day we beat the team that won, and then on the next day we lost the game we probably shouldn't have. But I think overall I'm pretty involved in the process and the experience they provide, or we provide, sorry. And again, that's like, I love being a part of it, because I take a lot of pride in knowing the ins and outs of our junior clubs and our players coming through the ranks.
Okay. And tell me, obviously you've been doing it, as you mentioned, for 3 years in this sort of role right now. What's the conversion rate of kids graduating out of juniors and coming back to Gordon Colts now? Because from the outside looking in, looks like over this period you've had a resurgence of people coming back to Gordon Colts. Has that had a big impact?
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of the soft spots for us as a club, losing a lot of juniors to other clubs. And I think when we run the numbers now, say we were losing, say, 70% of our juniors, we're probably keeping about 60% now. So there's been about a 30% switch, which is, at the moment, I think it's only going to improve with the program that we're providing at the Colts level. And then our women's programs for the first time this year had 2 15-a-side teams during the competition. So I think it's working both in the men and women's space. It's definitely improving, keeping our juniors, which is one of the main goals that we've had. And I guess, it is a lot easier to do those longer hours when there is an end goal, and it is starting to change a little bit. So, statistically, it's definitely improved. We've retained a lot of our junior girls and boys that, in past times have left. So it's definitely worked, always working.
And what's the growth rate been like on the female side of the game?
Yeah, it's a good question. For rugby overall, it's masking a few. Our demographic of players, unfortunately, is getting a little bit lower. But in our girls' space, we're really strong in numbers. We've got Hornsby, just from our area, Hornsby, Warunga, Linfield, Lane Cove and Chatswood all have girls' teams as such. And then there's little sprinkles of girls' players throughout all the clubs, which is really good.
Yep.
We're really healthy in the junior space. We've got 12 girls, 14 girls, 16 girls and 18 girls, which I think would be one of the only districts in that state championship space that has all 4. And then when we go to the 7s in September, we've got 4, the 4 as well, 11s, 13s, 15s, 17s. So really healthy in a rep space, but also our junior levels have been, I guess, keeping us at a nice level across the district with registered players. But I think we're really lucky as well. Like, we've got the Chloe Dalton Cup, Barker competition for 7s up there as well. that Shano runs and his team. So we're quite lucky to have the schools in our own backyard where Gordon is essentially a really easy step and pathway for them post-school. So, going after school, going around the corner from Barker to Hornsby or from Pymble to West Pymble, it's really a bit more probably achievable for us to be able to be strong in that space. But we do really pride ourselves on being the number one girls program in the state. That's what we aim to do.
And tell me, you mentioned the schools. What's your relationship like with the schools? Because you've got quite a number of big rugby schools in your catchment.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like because they've got their staff and they've got their resourcing in there at the colleges and the schools. So we don't want to step on their toes. But all we try and do is be really supportive of what they're doing and attend school events, school gala days, school girls and boys rugby days. That's what we're there to do. And with our local high schools, we're probably a bit more, we can be a bit more supportive in the coaching aspect. So the other day we went to Asquith Boys and we prepped them for their game they had last week because, the resourcing of their school didn't have enough staff in there. But we're really lucky that we feel like we're really lucky to be involved in those processes with the schools. So the more that schools have reached out and asked for support, we've always been able to deliver. So, yeah, I would say our relationship's really strong. I guess when we're only there to support, not overrule or take away from them, I think they're quite receptive of that as well.
And tell me, does the subbies clubs in your area fall into this environment of what you're doing?
Yeah, so we've got really good partnerships. It's just probably more of the senior level side of the role. Again, we're in our area. We're really lucky to have a number of subbies clubs in our catchment as such, in our Gordon catchment. But I guess, as we know, the reality is that numbers are definitely dropping across the board with registered players. So what we've been trying to do is essentially, send in players that we've only got 3 Colts teams, and we're really lucky to have 120 odd players this year. So we've had players playing at Hornsby, Barker Old Boys, Knox Old Boys, Linfield, Lane Cove, Old Iggies on a week-to-week basis. And I think, it does go a long way because we don't want to have warehouse players. We just want kids playing footy in the girls and boys space. So for us, it's really important that we have those positive relationships with those clubs because, get COVID again or, a flu goes through your team, you are then looking for players, and having the dual registration, especially at that lower level of the competition, has been really beneficial and a positive experience for us and I assume them as well to share players across the board.
So tell me one last question for you because I've taken up enough of your time and I really appreciate all the insights you're giving us. If there was another district around Sydney who was considering a model such as Gordon has gone down the path of, what would be your advice to a district who's considering that first up?
Yeah, I think it's really important the way you get the support from underneath. So you've got to have the junior clubs on board. And I think that's what Hutto and Harrow did really well, was have the support of the junior clubs, the village clubs that then supported the role, because it's not easy. It's a bit of a balancing act. And I think that the way, if the junior clubs are supporting what you're doing, you can get a lot of good work done in that space. But the first thing would be, networking with your junior clubs, finding out what they sort of need to do, and then just being mindful that you will have to sacrifice a few cold nights on the field or a weekend away at rugby. But just doing put your best foot forward by communicating a lot in that space. So communication would be key. And then I guess probably trying to link the junior and the senior club to have a really strong relationship, because the more people and hands on deck, the more power in that area can be pushed around. So, the network, communication, and then connection would be the way to lock it in, I'd say.
Mate, I always thought I was a busy guy in rugby, but you could be busier than me, it sounds like. So, look, thanks for giving us some insight on what you're doing at Gordon. You're doing a great job from the outside looking in. Congratulations, and thanks for sharing some time with us and the viewers.
All good. Thanks, PJ.
Thanks, mate.
This commercial break is brought to you by Posca. It's vegan free, it's vegan friendly. That means it contains no sausages, no rump steak, no pork chops. But it tastes like it does. Oscar.
Okay, howdy folks, Ben Gregory here and welcome to another edition of the Halftime Offload. This is going to be your state champs wrap of all things that happened over the King's birthday long weekend, and joining me to discuss the action of that state champs weekend is Andrew Hutton, President of New South Wales Juniors, Shane Williams, who's the General Manager of Sydney Juniors, and of course Jack Singleton, aka Greg Benory, my doppelganger on most occasions. So guys, we just had a massive state champs weekend, it's about 2 weeks ago now. Hope you all had a bit of time to rest because it was pretty full on. How did you find your state champs experience? I'll start with you, Hutto.
Yeah, look, it's pretty good. I mean, as you know, I've done it a few times now, probably too many than I care to remember. But I'd have to say this year, the 18s, it was an absolutely tremendous tournament. I think certainly the first one I've been involved with where we had 0 red cards. So I think that's a great commendation to those people that were playing it, and also that they played it with the right spirit, which is really important.
I think the red card stat tally for across all age groups, all boys, all girls, was 15 in total, which, considering the number of teams we had playing and the number of games we had, is just simply amazing. So congratulations to all the coaches, managers and players out there on your personal performances. Shane, what about you? How did you find your state champs at Maitland?
I was at Maitland. I had under 15s, second year in a row. And I think that's a good privilege, actually, because the under 15s have that pathway into Gem Blue with the Waratahs and that. So it was awesome. You know, I know there was a lot of weather issues at different venues this year. We had the wind like we have out here today at Randwick. But yeah, Maitland was awesome. The competition was close, and like Hutto said, red cards were a non-issue. So it was a fabulous competition, and everyone, you know, just got in there, played rugby, and you know, it was a good atmosphere.
Beautiful. And Jack, you're up at 15s as well?
Yeah, I was at Maitland, and as Shane said, the closeness of the competition, I think, I won't go into specific examples, but on a good day, there were teams who ended up down the bottom who in previous weeks or even during the state champs had very close games, draws or even wins against teams who made the quarterfinals. So I think on a good day, I could imagine a team right down in 20th position probably could have had a win or a very close game against any of the finalists. It was intense but close, even contests.
And Jack, it'd be remiss of me not to ask, what were the culinary delights up at Maitland? Did you any commentary on the options of food and beverage?
Look, I mean, probably a higher priority and of interest to me specifically was the number of kids dressed up as Greg Benory. They obviously were aware of the competition we were running, and I think there are 168 entrants. We haven't chosen a winner yet, but yeah, look, and you know they were eating the classic Greg Benory fare, a couple of sausage sandwiches before breakfast. It was very good. Awesome hosts, Maitland. Main fields incredible, Nick, and fields 2 and 3 were very good too. I know that had a lot of weather issues leading up to it, and I think there was enough wind over the tournament to probably dry those.
Oh yeah, there's definitely enough wind to dry them.
So we've got a winner. And
we've just found the bloke that forgot to turn his phone off for the recording. Well done. Booby prize for you, Jack.
Thank you.
So, look, we'll start off with the under-18 boys, which is out at Eric Tweedale, hosted by the Two Blues. Hutto was the competition manager out there. So,
Can I just correct you though, Ben?
Yes?
Because it was actually at Concord.
Oh, well, sorry. It was indeed. Two Blues are 16s.
Correct.
I've jumped the gun.
Lucky someone's on the ball.
Lucky, yeah. Well, I wasn't there, so. Tell us, so West Harbour, our host there at Concord and St Luke's. How was the 18s? Who won the NSW Shield for the boys?
That was won by Randwick for the 3rd year in a row, actually. But it was an interesting competition in that it was pretty tight at the top end. So what I think was pleasing was we had West Harbour. They actually fought with Randwick for the Sydney Cup.
Yep.
Hunter were the ones that won the Country Cup, and what was fitting was that in the end, Hunter played Randwick in the final. But interestingly enough, Randwick almost didn't make it. So Eastwood, it was essentially 1v8 in the quarterfinal, and Eastwood were leading at the whistle, the full-time hooter, not the whistle, I should say. So the siren went off for the end, but Randwick managed to somehow get a miracle try in the far right corner after the bell, and managed to scrape through, and then it was sort of almost plain sailing for them. But geez, it was close. And then the semi-final, which had Hunter playing West Harbour for the place in the final, that was a 0-0 draw at full time, and so it then came down to a kick-off. So
Good old kick-off.
A kick-off, which I've not actually seen before at the state champs, and that was fantastic. Went through. Obviously, Hunter made it through, and then Randwick seemed to really lift for that final. I think they got a bit of a scare in the quarterfinals, but it was great. And then the women were again actually played off against Sydney Uni v Manly, and they'd all weekend had gone sort of toe to toe. They had one game each, one within the games that they played in 4 rounds, etc. And basically, it came down to a draw in the end. So it was sort of interesting in that I think Manly had done some poor calculations, and at the end they'd got a penalty. I personally would have gone for the 3; they would have won it. They kicked out, had a bit of a line out, didn't work, full time draw, and they shared the victory.
JB Carroll Shield. Well, that's fantastic. And tell me, one of the things that I was most interested was the touring San Diego Legion team in the boys. How'd they go?
Actually, that's really a good point, BG. The San Diego team were fantastic. Unfortunately, one of the kids suffered a basically season-ending injury. He snapped his ankle with the tibia and the fibula right off. And the Americans were quite surprised about, as they kept saying, our social medicine. So they were surprised that the ambulance had turned up and actually put him in a cast to move him. And then he got moved to the hospital, and then they said, look, you're going to have surgery. So I think this kid had come from a rather well-to-do family, because at 6 a.m. the next morning, he was on a business class flight home to have the surgery there. So, wow. But San Diego, they behaved in such a great way. They were a real credit to their organisation. They loved it. They got through to the, in terms of the finals, they got through to the semi-final. They actually got beaten by West Harbour.
Oh,
quarterfinals.
I thought they made the plate final. I might have been wrong.
Actually, no, you're right. They did.
Yeah, I thought they made the plate final.
Yeah, I mean, it's because we did it so that we had I'm in my head working the grounds out, but because we did it so that the girls and boys played the final at the same time on the same field, it was a little bit out of how it normally is. But yes, you're right. They did.
Yeah. Oh, look, and a big thanks to the San Diego team for coming out. It's always a pleasure having a visiting team that is so popular with both the boys and the girls, and all the rugby public. So we hope we can have some more of that. Under 16s, they were at 2 Blues.
Yes.
I can say that now.
You can.
So Renee, who can't be with us today, Renee Park from Country Rugby was running that one, and 2 Blues boys took out the boys, and the girls was taken out by the Penrith side. Some pretty good rugby. I'm led to believe a couple of the teams. Josh Mitchell was telling us that Gordon actually knocked off 2 Blues, who were the eventual winners, but didn't then lost the game to someone they probably shouldn't have. So pretty tight across the board, and I suppose it goes through the selections. We'll talk about selections in rep teams a bit at the end, but a pretty even competition out there at Eric Tweedale. So thanks to Randy and his team, who were our hosts. But all in all, a pretty good under 16s foray in both the boys and the girls.
Yeah, Gordon actually had the reverse of what happened with Randwick Eastwood.
Yeah.
They didn't get that last try in the dying seconds.
So that takes us to the 15s. So 15s is you, Shane.
So 15s, look, we had Gordon take out the state champs over North, which was actually a replay of the Sydney Cup final, which Gordon also won. A bit of bad luck for North, because it was actually their second year in 15s of being the bridesmaid in both Sydney Cup and the state championships. So North have clearly had a good few years with players and player retention and that. Just haven't quite been able to get over the line. Last year they lost to 2 Blues and to Warringah, and this year it was Gordon that beat them over. I think the big surprise for us was that ACT actually topped the country pool, so they went straight through to quarterfinals for the state cup.
Yep.
So that was a big surprise. But you know, they played some good footy. There was some good footy all round. You know, Illawarra played some great games, but then you know missed out. You know, they're always a strong team. So,
That Country Cup winner was Hunter.
Country Cup winner was Hunter. They were overall probably the strongest country team on the day, on the weekend. They were probably a bit unlucky against Eastwood in the quarterfinals. One of their young players had quite a serious injury, head knock, which was concussion. You know, he was taken to hospital in an ambulance, and he's all good, so no ongoing stuff there. But that rattled them, and Eastwood ran away with that game. I think Hunter, if that probably could have gone a bit further, but that's, you know, Gala State Rugby footy, right? Like, you take your chances when they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, an example of the closeness, Randwick lost to Hunter in the playoff for sixth, the playoff for fifth.
Yeah.
And Randwick had earlier in one of the pool games, I think a 22-19 loss to Norths, who were the runners-up. So the difference between country and city is minimal, if at all.
Yeah, it's
top level.
definitely getting closer at that level, which is great to see. Like, I think it's going to make for a great regionals in that age group this year.
Oh, I imagine there'll be some really good stuff when we talk about the reps a bit further. So the John Goddard Shield went to Gordon, and they took the Sydney Cup State Cup double.
Yeah, they took the double,
which is a very impressive, because I'm pretty sure the Gordon the previous year in the 14s had an unlucky campaign, and so they've got a bit of redemption and done the double, which is very hard to do.
Very hard to do. Got a double, and look, that Gordon team, and I know they had a few players playing injured too, so full credit to them, like just sticking it out. But they just seemed to get better throughout the weekend. Like, really, I mean, they were the team to. They had some close games, but they were the team to beat. They just, every game, they just got that little bit better, which, you know, in state champs is quite unusual to see that happen.
And a big shout out to Sarah Strawn and the team up at Maitland Blacks.
They were awesome once again. Put on a great weekend. You know, you mentioned the food before. They do a really good barbie, and they put on some extraordinary food. But yeah, they have it all set up. It's all ready to go. It's fantastic.
Oh, we should also shout out to Mark Ella, who came up primarily to support Randwick, but ended up being the ceremony, the doves, the bow and arrow into the fire cauldron. But Mark came up to Maitland from the central.
Yeah, and I found out we do have some video footage of that, so I've got to get it off Sarah.
Right.
So, which was really good. Mark said some really, you know, poignant words and all that. But yeah, it was he's very into the school or the junior rugby and that. So. He was awesome.
Great man, Mark, and thanks to Mark and his agent, whom organised to get him up there and help with an opening ceremony at a state champs, which I'm not sure we've had before.
The flaming cauldron was a nice touch. Okay. The fact it doubled as a barbecue, very economical use of flaming cauldrons. They are scarce these days.
Okay, so we're now back to the under 14s, which were in Dubbo, which is where I was. Great hosting by the Dubbo Roos, Nicky Wilner and Adam Wilner and the Dubbo Roos. They put on a fantastic job for our 14s boys and girls. Once again, like you guys are talking about some tight stuff, the 14 boys was a really, really exciting age group. Norths ended up taking the title in the final, but they lost the Sydney Cup to the same team. So once we talk about hard to do the double, right? Eastwood knocked them over in the Sydney Cup, and then it was reversed in the final of the state champs. But some of the country teams, Hunter in particular, we had strong Illawarra. We had Warringa's probably one that would be my team that sort of, they lost the Norths by 7 points in the very first pool game, and yet they didn't make the cup finals. They ended up winning the plate final. But yeah, some really exciting teams running through the under 14s across the boys. And in the girls, we saw Illawarra. Country girls seem to love dominating the under 14 girls championships. The Phil Warner Trophy went to Illawarra. I think Central Coast might have had it last year. So yeah, the Sydney girls just can't get their hand on that little bit of state champ silverware. But the Illawarra girls were fantastic, and a lot of depth across all the boys and girls there in Dubbo. And the last one was the Whiteout in Orange. I'm sure the kids may not remember who won and lost a lot of the games, but they'll all remember playing in the snow. at Waratah Sports Complex there at Orange. Penrith eventually took the title, but the weather was obviously the star of the show there, and the pork rolls, I believe, were pretty good too, Jack. You might have missed that.
No, I remember 2 years ago the pulled pork rolls were good. Yeah, I had a few bought back.
Yes.
Especially for me.
I think they were playing under lights on Sunday, weren't they? In
They
the middle of the day, they were playing under lights.
I believe that when the snow first started, there was snow angels and snowball fights and snowmen being built. When it finally got to the end, there was people shivering. As you can imagine, it was some pretty cold conditions there. But playing in the snow was something that those kids will never forget.
Right, that's definitely right. Ask them who won, not a hope.
Yeah,
Ask them what happened, it snowed.
And Penny and Chris and Orange City, they put on a wonderful job in very trying conditions. So thanks, Penn and Chris, for everything you guys do hosting our state champs there in Orange. So that's a wrap of who the winners. We go on now from we've got under 12s coming up in a couple of weeks, the delayed one. So let's not forget that is coming up. But we go on to the next level now, the regionals, where the Sydney and country squads, red and blue, black and gold, have all been chosen to go and decide who's going to be in the final Sydney and country teams for the City Country Clashes late July. So I know in the 14s we had a pretty even spread across the teams, but we also picked some development teams under, which Shane's coaching and heading down to Adelaide on a tour. I'm amazed at some of the players that ended up in the development team that couldn't make a Sydney Red or Sydney Blue or a country black and gold.
Oh, some of the, especially in the boys team, some of the young boys there who are in the development team coming to Adelaide with us, I was really surprised. So the talent must be really good for some of these kids to miss out on the red and blue team and still making a development team. But yeah, there must be some seriously good talent out there. So
I think the closeness of the competitions is evidence that there's a lot of talent. I've got an interesting story about a player that came into Randwick from another district, did not make our rep team in the 16s, put himself in the player pool, played for Norths at the state champs, and then actually has gone on to be in a rep team. I think the Barbarians, who was picked out of which has created questions about is he a rep player, because player pool you're not actually a rep player, but from playing his state champs for Norths, he's been selected.
He's been selected in the next level.
Yeah. Well, look, that's the
Ed Walker, great young man, Ed Walker.
That's the beauty of the player pool and that second chance environment. If he hasn't made his rep team, his district rep team to go to the state champs, he's found another way through. Played well enough, obviously, to be picked in.
Played the house down.
He's in the President's 15.
Yes, he is President's 15.
We'll touch on the 16s in a minute. But Shane, what about the 15s? We had Matty Everard out casting his eye over for the Waratahs at Dubbo. Who'd you have?
We had Andrew Cleverly. So Clev was out there with his team, and Mike Cross was out there as well. So I reckon they had a pretty hard weekend, to be honest. There was a lot of talent out there. I'd expect Gordon would have got a fair few in because they were a very good side. But yeah, it would have been a tough gig out there selecting. I saw a few props running around that. My goodness, like Southern Districts didn't, get where they wanted to be, but some of their props they would be my first picks. They were really, really good. Big, mobile young men. Like they're going to be hard to stop.
And Jack, what about you from the 15s? You've given us the Ed Walker story.
Ed Walker, great story, the Ed Walker story. Look, 15s from my district, from Randwick. I think 7 of the 15s have been selected in blue, red, and Barbarians.
Yep.
Few surprises, but yeah, 7 very happy boys and happy families. But I think looking at where those players came from. It wasn't like any one district dominated, which again is evidence of the closeness of the competition. Yeah. I think you could probably pick a 4th team or a 5th team and they'd still be at that level.
Yeah. Well, look, moving on to the 16s, which Renee's obviously not here, but I've had a little bit to do being the manager of the President's 15. The talent across the 16s looks amazing. Like it would be the strongest President's 15, which is picked after Sydney Red and Sydney Blue and Country Black and Country Gold. I think it's the strongest President's 15, which is able to be the last one picked, that I've ever seen in 10, 12 years of running the President's 15 at a regionals tournament. So some really exciting depth in our 16s age group, which I can't wait to see them run around at Camden in a couple of weeks, because I think the Sydney and country coaches have got a real job on their hands. They've had their first look and they've obviously got their picture. I think that picture could be blown out of the water at the regionals. So exciting times there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot up for grabs. There's a lot of good players across all those teams, and it's not going to matter what team you're playing in. You have got an absolute shot. You have to just perform on the day, and anything could happen from there.
And look, the 16s, the boys in particular, they've got that double shot, because the schools trials are coming up this weekend for the 16s, where ISA, CHS, GPS, CAS are all playing each other to make that New South Wales Schools 1 and 2 team. So you'll have players who are playing there. They've already played for Sydney or country, and they might be in the squad here. That double bite of the cherry to get them a chance at those final Waratahs teams in the 16s is a real important part of our pathway, and a really special part. Really excited to see what's going to go on with them. 16 girls, we don't take to regionals this year because of the new Nationals tournament that's running up in the Sunshine Coast in early July. So Sydney and country have had to pick their 23 from the state champs, which I know is a really difficult task to try to narrow it down to 23 from a state champs. And I know that many of those on socials have expressed their opinions on that particular process. But the selectors have had to come down and finalise a 23 to go to the Nationals, and that is the pathway. It's a tough job. I wouldn't want to have been a selector for the 16 girls, because there's some pretty special girls out there that have just missed out, that could easily have been like for like for those that did get selected. And 18 boys, we have a different pathway for them, don't we?
Yeah, it's already done. We've done the Sydney selections. We have an open trial. How many did we have all up?
195 trial for Sydney and 160 70 odd for country. It was ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, unprecedented compared to what it's been like. But I think that shows the strength of the game, which is great. And we've developed it over the years. These guys are still enthusiastic. They're looking for that opportunity, and it allows them, if they haven't made the Waratahs squads, it does allow them to still be seen and still have that pathways. And the Asra guys we're looking at, some of them are playing now. There's a trial matches going on at Shore today, I believe. Tomorrow, is it?
Yep.
Okay. Tomorrow. I won't go today then.
No, don't go today. You'll miss them.
You'll be lonely.
So the 18 boys pathway has been developing for a number of years, and Australian schools have always had their pathway. The club rugby stuff, we joined about 2021. I think we might have joined that pathway now. But for young kids who've left school, who might still be playing Colts, but they're still only 17, gives them a chance to try to make a way into a state or national team at the end of the day, which is really important, because we do have some special players that play Australian schoolboys as 16, 17-year-olds. Then they leave school, they're still under 18, but they were out of the pathway. Now it's all inclusive, they're in the pathway, and the schools championships up on the Sunshine Coast in a few weeks is a really special tournament. And we wish all the kids who are playing up there the best of luck.
Well, we're a late maturing game too. I mean, certainly from a boys and youth and girls development process. There are some guys that maybe at 16, 17 they finished school, they didn't make it side, but continue to play and more importantly continue to grow. So you don't want to miss them, and you don't want to let them and their enthusiasm wane, which can and has happened in the past. So it's a good way of keeping that pathway alive.
It's also good for shoot shield rugby going forward too, because we've got a depth of. Hopefully they stay in the game. They've got a good depth there to keep showing their wares and hopefully get picked up somewhere.
Yeah, and we've got the Barbarians team picked out of the state champs, which I'm sure the selectors were there casting their eye over all the players and creating depth charts and the like. But we've got to wait till the schools 1 and 2 team and the juniors teams picked first before we can tell you who's in our Barbarians team. So that will all happen on Friday night this week.
I've got plenty of parents giving me opinions.
I'm sure there are. A few coaches gave you their opinions as well.
Yeah, very much so.
Look, I love that everyone's passionate. We've also got, Shane, you've got the tour to Adelaide coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, to Adelaide coming in a couple of weeks.
Boys and girls?
Boys and girls. We've got both squads coming down in 2 weeks for training here at Daceyville. We'll be training on the East-West Oval. We'll give them a bit of a tour in the facility. They'll get their gear, and then that week we actually fly out to Adelaide. The girls girls get to play one game, and they also get some training as well. They'll get some high-level coaching under their belts, and the boys get 2 games against Adelaide and Tasmania. So really looking forward to that, and looking forward to taking a great bunch of kids down to
Adelaide, South Australia.
Pardon?
I think it's the same.
It's the same, isn't it? Adelaide, South
I
Australia.
think the population is like 1 million in South Australia and 800,000 live in Adelaide.
Right.
I think the numbers are something like that.
Right.
I think the population has changed since you were in high school, Ben.
Well, it's grown by 2, hasn't it?
It's grown significantly.
Only because you said Tasmania.
Oh, well,
And-
you know,
and
it's about the same
Hobart.
size, isn't it?
No, really looking forward to a chance to take our development sides down and play against South Australia and Tasmania. We've got a policy at New South Wales Juniors. We want to try and help grow the game outside our borders, and taking teams down there and helping grow the game will only help us have better opposition to play in the future. So really looking forward to playing the 2 teams down there. What else we got coming up, guys? We've got 12 development gala up at North Narrabeen in a couple of weeks for all the second teams in the under 12s.
I might interrupt myself on that one. I may have spoken about this when we last met, but I know from the Randwick team that participated in the first ever under 12 development gala, of the 23 players, 21 of them are still playing club rugby, and 11 of them, since they played in the under 12 development gala, 11 of them have since gone on to play rep in either 13s, 14s or 15s.
Oh, wow.
So I guess, we talk about second bites of the cherry and second chances. A lot of those players in that under 12 development gala in, what was the first year, 2022?
Yeah, I think it might have been
2022. Some of them missed out on rep because they were new to rugby. Some of them hadn't had their growth spurt yet. Many other reasons, but 19 of the 23 still playing club rugby, and 11 of that 23 have gone on to play some form of rep rugby.
So would you be suggesting that the development gala helps the development of players?
I would say that's almost a fact.
Right.
And I'm also very excited about the under 12 Indigenous All Stars. Will we talk about that?
The Lloyd McDermott
The
team?
Lloydies under 12s. We've got a few from the Randwick district in that Lloydies Indigenous All-Star team, so it'll be a bit of mate against mate up at Narrabeen.
So Lloydies are bringing a boys team and a girls team to our 12 development gala, which is, once again, we're trying to grow the game outside our boundaries. And that's a really exciting thing. And so thanks to Tommy and Luke at Lloyd McDermott Foundation, and we're really excited to have them involved. So it should be a lot of fun up there. And then 12 state champs, which we should have had, but we didn't have because of the floods. Hopefully the Mid-North Coast is back on track now, and we'll have our 12 state champs in the middle of the school holidays. And finishing it off with the 10s and 11s, which is probably one of our most positive events, I would say. My favourite part is the Spirit of Rugby Award that we give at each of those, which is for the nicest team. It's for the team that carries themselves the best on and off the field, but it's also on the way that the parents behave.
Correct.
And I don't think there's another sport that has an award where parental behaviour on the sideline determines whether you win or lose. So shout out to all the parents who are heading to the King's School or Mudgee for the 10s or 11s. Your behaviour on the sideline does determine whether or not your team will win the Spirit of Rugby Award.
Yep. And look, I think the fact that districts can send 2 teams, effectively, well, they have to be an A and a B, to the 10 and 11 state galas. I've looked back historically through our district, and almost all of that second team, all the players in the second team for the past 3 or 4 years in the 10s and 11s are still playing, and the majority of them have gone on to play rep to be in that district's top team in 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s. So again, that I guess the concept of a district sending 2 teams, an A and a B, is to develop a wider group of boys and girls, and it works.
No, it's fun.
It is good. You don't. By the way, you don't have to send 2 teams, but yeah,
You can.
it is. Yeah, you can and you do. And to your point, it's the whole reason is with it's obviously smaller numbers, 18 a squad. But those development sides, when years and years gone by, we used to play for silverware, which was just crazy. So getting it down to the development is a far better, and does have a better, more positive result. I mean, I think it's also worthwhile saying, you made comments about how we're trying to broaden the base. It's worth noting that we are the largest junior rugby championships currently, I believe, in the world now, since we've got, our state championships isn't just New South Wales. We have Victoria, we have Queensland, we have San Diego. We've got Perth at one stage, although that went got a bit fractious. But
219 teams this year.
yeah, so it's worth noting that.
Which is a massive effort. And look, the growth rate in the last 10 years, as I've said many times, 10 years ago we were at 133 teams. So we've nearly added 100 teams to a state championships.
I might need the calculator for this one. So
No.
that's from the under 10s up to the opens, boys and girls.
That is 10
Correct.
boys and girls.
How many teams?
Well, 220, call it, Jack, and we were at 133. So not only is Jack our Randwick liaison officer, amateur archivist, but he's also
Roughly.
our mathematician.
So we've got on that, what Jack's worked out roughly is 4,600 participants. Players.
Roughly.
Extra.
10 and 11s are only
In
allowed
total,
in the
yeah.
squad.
Yeah.
And obviously from you could be sending up to 25 players
Yeah.
under 12.
So
but you don't have
on
to.
an average across the grades.
I've
that's-
averaged 21 per
Yeah,
team.
that's a great
Fair average.
participation.
You had coaches and managers and referees and officials in there. We're at 5,000.
Oh, look, and it's no doubt that the local communities and why we spread our base wide in terms of getting the hosting rights, because it actually brings quite a massive economic injection into the local community, and the councils are
Oh, look, the numbers.
appreciative of it.
The numbers that what we take to say Dubbo, 2 age groups, double age group, 35, 36 teams, it's nearly $3 million thrown into that economy for a weekend. It's massive amounts of money.
It's a lot of sausages.
It is a lot of sausages or pork rolls or whatever, pies. I know you're a bit partial to the pie.
Love a few pies.
So look, that's about it. City Country then finishes it off at the end of July, and then we go back to club rugby for all our grand finals across New South Wales regional and metro areas.
I think we're back into the 16s SJRU comp on the 20th.
Yep.
Last weekend.
Last
Sunday
weekend
at
of
school
July,
holidays.
yeah, last weekend of school holidays, the 16s play their round 8. They have this week off for obvious reasons with everything going on for that group of players. So yeah, we get back into it a little bit earlier, and then everyone's back the week after. So into the home stretch, people fighting it out for finals. So we'll see how that all ends up.
Yeah, so look, big thanks to our sponsors, Wahoo, Peugeot, the Rugby Club Foundation. Without all your Posca, without all your support, we couldn't offer these sort of events to our kids. So hats off to all the supporters, all the coaches, managers, parents, spectators, everyone who's been involved. It was another huge state championships. I know we enjoyed it, and we look forward to bringing you another one next year. Anything else from you guys before we sign off?
I would just like to congratulate and thank the parents, the coaches, and the participants for the behaviour this year. I think by and large, yeah, we had some issues, but by and large, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And having done this for sort of 10 or so years, it's encouraging.
No, it was a wonderful effort, and we're very proud. We're very proud of what we put on here. So thank you to one and all.
I'd add one thing. Most of us get involved in club rugby because we have a son or daughter playing. I would encourage people to get out to the 10s and 11s, 12s development up at Narrabeen or even down to 12 state champs. Even if you don't have a kid there, you can relax a bit more, enjoy the rugby without that self-interest. I'll be doing a lot of kilometres over the school holidays, going to the 10s, 11s and 12s, even games where my son's not playing. More relaxed, more sausage sandwich, which helps build the club.
Well,
Supporting
Jack,
clubs.
there is an opportunity to come to Mudgee, and each team needs to bring their own referee this year to Mudgee, which we did last year and was very successful.
I am in talks.
So you can come as a referee.
I will be heading up to Mudgee to pop in, yeah.
Wonderful spot, Mudgee, and we look forward to getting there as we do the King's School for our under 10s.
Well, it's actually, I want to mention the King's School. It's worth noting that the work that you and I and plenty of others have done over the years, we were very much a case of the schools were schools rugby and club rugby was club rugby. Now, actually getting that cohesive engagement, and now King's actually hosting a go, it's just a credit to yourself and a credit to the whole fact that the game is growing at that level.
Just growing and breaking down barriers.
It's fantastic.
More important.
And the support we've got at the schools now has been unprecedented, certainly in the last couple of years.
Yeah, we're lucky we have a fantastic relationship with all the affiliates and schools especially. And whilst we're talking about schools, a big shout out to Chuck Ardern Mate, we're thinking of you, and thanks for all the hard work that you put in on behalf of New South Wales schools and Australian schools rugby. There is no harder working man than Chuck Ardron. That's it, folks. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, for all your work.
Thank you.
We'll see you next episode. Okay, folks, that's about all we have time for this episode. Thanks for joining us. I want to thank all my co-hosts, Josh Mitchell, for coming in and teaching us a little bit about what's happening up in the Gordon pathways there. Shane, Hutto, and Jack, obviously. Jack's our regular co-host and funny man. We'll be back to you very soon. There's a lot happening in the rugby space in the next few weeks. We'll have plenty to report as we come back across club rugby and schools rugby. Until then, punt high and follow through.